Hello guys, my name is Lars Stender. I'm a writer from Denmark who specializes in science fiction and fantasy stories. I'm here tonight to read from a fantasy book, Mandigo and the Hellhounds. If you want to know more about me and my books, you're welcome to follow the link at the bottom of the screen. Mandigo and Hellhounds, Chapter 26. Mandigo knew a seldom used entrance to the casemates. It was located in the northwestern tower. There was a guard at the top of the tower, but his attention was drawn towards the lake and the area surrounding it. The fog also helped to conceal Mandigo's and his friends' movements, so that they were all able to reach the door of the tower unharmed. The door was locked with a padlock, but Mandigo took hold of the padlock with his right hand and focused on it with his gift. He felt a hard electric wave run through his arm and into the padlock that gave a jolt through the palm of his hand. There was a clicking sound, and the door unlocked. Mandigo carefully removed the padlock and whispered to Casper behind him. "Will you make sure that the hinges don't creak?" "I'll take care of that," said Helena. "I'm good with sounds, you know." She approached the heavy wooden door and held her hands before her the rusty hinges as she whispered a magical formula. Mandigo couldn't hear everything she said, but he recognized the word Emmon, which he knew meant quiet in Feral. He couldn't help thinking about all the things he had missed out on not by attending lessons in magic. Helena nodded to Mandigo, who pushed the door open without a sound. He quickly stepped inside, followed by Casper and Jasper and, finally, Helena. It was completely dark inside, but Mandigo knew where there was a lantern hanging. He found it and lit it by saying the word Esrat and pushed a little with his gift. "This way," he whispered as he began walking down the spiral staircase that led to the casemates. Sinister-looking shadows followed the four young magic students on their way down the steps, and a clammy coldness emerged from the raw stone walls that surrounded them. They came to a small room with a vaulted ceiling. There was a rickety table with 2 stools, and on the table there were a pair of tarnished tin mugs and some worm dice scattered between them. There were also some breadcrumbs and dried pieces of meat that a mouse was in the middle of salvaging. The mouse's eyes gleamed in the light from the lantern, and with a small squeal it darted from the table and down to the floor. There were 2 exit doors in the room. One led to the casemates on the western part of the curtain wall, while the other, according to Mandigo, led to the casemates under the keep. Mandigo went over to the second door and took a hold of the door handle, whereupon it opened from the inside, and a terrible stench drove Casper, Jasper, and Helena back in the opposite direction. Mandigo, on the other hand, had got used to the stench from the dracoids, so he stood completely unaffected as he watched his friends who, with tears in their eyes, struggled to recover their breaths as they tried to protect their mouths and noses with the sleeves of their frocks. Along with the stench, there was a sound of deep snoring and incessant belching from many dracoids who were asleep on the other side of the door. "Do you expect us to walk through that?" Helena asked incredulously as she coughed. Mandigo lifted his finger to his lips to remind her to keep quiet. "We have no choice," he whispered. Then looked over at Casper. "Casper, could you make sure that they stay asleep, no matter what?" "I'll try," he said, as he stepped hesitantly towards the door. "They seem to be fast asleep now, as far as I can tell. But we have to make sure that none of them suddenly wake up while we are passing through their bedroom." Casper searched his pockets and found something that looked like a ball of tightly squeezed leaves. From another pocket he took out a small pocket knife. He placed a strange ball at the tip of the pocket knife and stuck it into the lantern. After a short while the ball of leaves caught fire and started emitting a heavy smoke. "Watch out," Casper warned, as he made a sign to us to step back. "This is strong stuff." He held the knife with the smoking ball of leaves in the room of sleeping dracoids. As he made sure to hold it as far away from his own head as possible, he chanted a magical formula in a language Mandigo had never heard before. "Draufne, kufsem hes." In response, the smoke from the ball of leaves began to float into the dracoid storm, where it quickly formed into a rolling cloud that pervaded everything and wrapped the slumbering bodies in a vapor that pulled him ever down into a practically bottomless state of unconsciousness. That should take care of that, Casper exclaimed with a crooked grin after his magical spell began to take effect. They won't wake up for the next many hours, not even if someone began playing drums right next to them. What about us? Mandigo inquired. Eat this, Jasper answered as he held out some roots. They'll make you immune from the cloud of slumber flower seeds. Mandigo took a root and bit into it. The taste was sharp and bitter, but he soon felt a stream of clarity run through his head. Okay, let's move on then, he said as he stepped into the Dracoid's dorm. The Dracoids were sleeping in coarse bunk beds with the foot of the beds facing the central aisle. Most of the reptile-like creatures slept in their uniforms, and the stench from their filthy clothes and bodies were nauseating. Even Mandigo, who was otherwise used to frequenting Dracoids, had to put his sleeve of his shirt in front of his nose in order to avoid the stench of the stuffy room. The 4 companions tiptoed down through the dorm. They did their best not to knock into something, but the floor was littered with trash, pieces of armor, scraps of food, and spilled beer, so it's practically impossible not to step in any sort of trash. Jasper accidentally kicked a helmet that one of the Dracoids had thoughtlessly thrown on the floor. There was a loud metallic clattering, and Mandigo and his friends froze like icicles. But luckily, the cloud from the slumber powder proved to be just as potent as Casper had promised. Except for a few Dracoids turning in their sleep, only to continue snoring, none of them reacted to the noise. The sleep-inducing clouds hung like grey dust like fog in the room and made everything look hazy. Mandigo could feel how the clouds singed his eyelids and made them heavy, even though he was chewing on the stimulating root that Casper had given him. In a moment of irritation, he started to make an unconscious attack with his gift, and the clouds separated before him like water in a rippling river that separates and flows to each side of a cliff in the middle of a stream. Once Mandigo realized this, it made him stop so abruptly in his tracks that the others bumped into him from behind. Ouch! Damn it! Casper grunted, rubbing his nose that had banged into Mandigo's broad, chinwheel-covered back. Why are you stopping? Mandigo turned around halfway and stared briefly at Jasper. When Casper had sent the clouds from the slumber flower into the dorm, he had used a magic spell. Mandigo had not understood the language Jasper had spoken as he did so, but now he realized that may have been irrelevant. Mandigo could move the clouds without having to use a magic spell. He remembered something that Greta had once told him. Either you have the gift or you don't. Without the gift, you can make all the signs and say all the chants you want, but that won't help you. Actually, you'll always be able to distinguish between a skilled magician and a poor one, in that the skilled one almost never has to make gestures or say anything in particular to make his or her magic work. The memory of Greta's wise words sent a jagged stab of pain and longing through Mandigo. The time he had spent at Greta's was still the happiest of his life, and he was both disappointed and angry that Mortero had ruined that for him. At the same time, he was angry with Greta because she seemingly had completely forgotten about him, abandoning him to his own fate here at Bloodstone. What is it, Mandigo? You have a strange look on your face, Casper said. Are we going to just stand around here all day or what? Helena hissed from behind. I can't stand these things any longer! Mandigo cursed out his brain and finally continued to move forward. His frustration and anger was reflected in his gift that whisked around him like an invisible, windswept ocean, throwing the slumber flower clouds about him wild it is.
Okay, so here we go again.
Yeah.
So now we know a little bit more magic.
Yeah.
That is for sure. And the other thing we learned about is that some people do not like a farm.
That's right. There are certain odors that are not particularly popular.
Oh, you mean? Okay. Are you sure about that?
Yeah, I get the feeling.
So, now we're working towards what Mandigo wanted to know already.
Yeah.
And the next part will probably be to see what's going on.
Yeah.
But the girl seems to have some usefulness now.
Yes, definitely.
And the two boys seems to be
Still clownish.
in the way.
But also useful.
Probably, yeah. Always good with a good mood. So, really believe that definitely more is coming.
Yeah.
And I think this chapter doesn't have much to discuss.
Oh.
Because it seems just to be in the tunnel to the next.
Yeah. We learned something about Mandigo and his growing power.
Yeah. Because now he don't need to say something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eat something. Don't get old Jenny on me. Old skinny, sorry.
I know, yes, we have something before I take an extra.
Okay, let's cut it here.
Yep.